I'd like to call this meeting of the Fargo School Board to order. Good evening and welcome to all of our guests and to our audience. Approval of agenda. Robin.
I move approval of the agenda as presented with the HR addendum.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Correspondence. Dr. Schatz.
Yeah, I have one piece here tonight that I wanted to read to you. Students at Claire Barton were writing business letters, and one of the students chose to write me. And so I'm going to read it to you here. It's pretty good. Dear Dr. Schatz, thank you for making the difficult decision of putting in air conditioning. I wish it was put in last year, but it is what it is. I think that the third and fourth graders will adore that they don't have to sweat while sitting and working when it's 95 degrees outside. Sincerely, and I won't say the name. So anyways, I thought that was pretty good, and I'm going to pass that around. So that's my piece of correspondence for you tonight. So thank you.
Well, I wish I could be as entertaining, but I have a letter from the NDCEL president to the board thanking us for our continued support of the administrators and their professional organizations. So I'll pass that around. And also, after the action on the last board meeting, a letter was sent to Mike Montplaisir, Cass County Auditor, and the City Auditor, Steve Sprague, with our election, potential for hosting elections in our schools. So I'll pass that around so people can see too. Any other correspondence? Hey, thank you. Then, as always, the most fun part of the evening, strategic plan in action. Dr. Gross.
Well, thank you very much. Tonight for the part of your agenda around strategic plan in action, we want to focus a little bit on Result 5, which is citizenship. And we have a group with us tonight from North High School, the DECA organization. Also here in the audience is the principal, Mr. Andy Dolan, and he's going to introduce the group to you.
There, that helps. I just want to thank you for serving in the capacity that you do. I know that at times you're probably feeling like you're under fire and that you're under criticism at different times, but we do really appreciate what you do for all of our students and staff in our public schools. Tonight I get an opportunity also to talk about our DECA program. At North High School, we have over 162 students involved in our DECA program. It's our highest involved program at North High. And it's been recognized both nationally and at the state level. We had 33 students recently qualify for the nationals, which are going to be held in Atlanta, Georgia. And we have 2 advisors. Both are also involved in spring activities, so they're not here this evening, but Mr. Craig Erickson, he has 25 years of experience. I knew him back in Grand Forks. He came down here 13 years ago and has been a part of our DECA program. And because of our growth, we also have a second advisor, Kelly Sitzler Erickson, and she's been with us for, I believe, 4 years and has cumulative years of 10 years of experience in education. But it's just an outstanding program. They do lots of different things for our school. And today we have 5 individuals here, and they're going to introduce themselves. I'll get a chance to introduce, though, Addie Long, who is our president, and she'll take it from there.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Addie Long. I've had the pleasure of serving this past year as DECA's chapter president. And so just a little bit about DECA. Oh, is this already on? Yeah. Okay. So just a little bit about DECA. It prepares emerging leaders and entrepreneurs in finance, marketing, and management. And so that really helps in preparing us for the real world of business and whatever aspect you go into in your future life. We also compete in role plays. So those are like mock interviews, and those were with various business individuals around the area wherever we compete. We also do campaigns for things like advertising campaigns around real businesses, but they're mock. And we also do service projects, is what we're going to talk about in this presentation.
Great, so I'm Ahmed Ati, and this year I was the organizer for Homeless and Hungry's Drive. I'm going to start by talking about Homeless and Hungry. Homeless and Hungry is a program that was started by First Lutheran Church, and First Lutheran Church continues to be crucial in organizing this program. And also in the past, DECA has been involved with Homeless and Hungry. Homeless and Hungry revolves around a 30-hour fast in which participants are sponsored to raise money for the homeless population. All right.
It's Rick on the phone, so
Right.
go ahead.
In which participants are sponsored to raise money for the homeless. But another part of Homeless and Hungry is the drive. Traditionally, we've had a food drive, but this year we went with a clothing drive because there are a lot of food drives going on in the fall, and more specifically the Fill the Dome drive occurring at around the same time as Homeless and Hungry. So we went with the clothing drive, and I kind of got involved with Homeless and Hungry initially because of a presentation I saw in my management class. Last year, another student who was involved in DECA, Robert Helming, was the organizer for Homeless and Hungry's drive, and I saw his presentation. I was interested. So Mr. Erickson put me in contact with the organizers at First Lutheran Church, and that's kind of how things got started. So we met over the summer, and we decided that we would be contacting elementary schools and middle schools to get them involved in the drive. And so in the fall, we prepared the drive by gathering supplies and giving them to the schools. They were donated by Home Depot, and we gave the students an incentive. We said the classroom that raised the most clothing would get a pizza party, and I didn't expect much, to be honest, but I guess we underestimated the power of pizza, and the students raised 4,500 articles of clothing in 1 week. And this clothing was donated to Churches United and distributed locally to the local homeless population on the day of Homeless and Hungry. So this obviously has a significant effect on the community, the homeless community, because it provides them warmth over North Dakota's winters. But I think another reason why this is very important is because it got young students involved in service at a very young age. And one thing that I learned in particular from organizing this is that people are often eager to help, but they just don't know how. And I think this clothing drive is one way that, like, we showed them that they are able to help. And the excitement that the students showed once we got them started was it was amazing. And especially Lewis and Clark, the student council at Lewis and Clark was like making posters, putting them up around the school, encouraging their classmates to participate. And I think this was also featured in the newsletter for one of the weeks. So yeah, the Homeless and Hungry Clothing Drive is something that DECA has been a part of in the past and will continue to be a part of. And I hope that next year someone will continue to run this drive. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cassie, and this is Laura, and we did a community service project this year on Operation Gratitude, which is a nonprofit organization that sends care packages to deployed troops, wounded warriors, and veterans. It was started by Carolyn Blaszek in California, and she started after the 9/11 attacks to show our appreciation for the troops.
Okay, so some of the things we did to promote this, Fargo North, we held a drive in February collecting items such as hats, movies, CDs, anything that the troops, that can help them. So we did that. We went to 5 radio stations to promote our drive, including Prairie Public, Big 98, Froggy 99.9, KFGL, the Joel High Camp Show, and Y94. We also went to Longfellow and Washington elementary schools, and we just asked them to raise money and write letters. Some of the letters they wrote were really encouraging, and we brought a sample if you guys want to read it. And the turnout from Longfellow was incredible. They raised like $300 just in change, so it was incredible. And like Ahmed said, we encouraged them with a pizza party, so I gave them a pizza party. And then we also went to Ben Franklin, and they raised a ton of money as well, like $1,500. And we ended up raising over $2,200 and 87 items, including hats and movies, T-shirts, anything you use in your everyday life. And we sent this over to Operation Gratitude March 15th, and they put the packages together and they send them over to whoever needs them.
Another thing that we did was make a big banner, and we brought those to the schools too, and we had students sign them, and we sent that over to Operation Gratitude as well. And a few weeks ago, we got a letter from Carolyn herself, and she was thanking us for all that we did. And this project was like a really good opportunity for us because it really made us gain appreciation for everything that we have. And it taught us that it's important to give back because they do sacrifice so much for us.
Yeah, just going off what Cassie said, this particular project really hits home, especially for us seniors who are graduating. We have a lot of students that are enlisted and are going off into the military in the summer. And Cassie and I both have family members in the military, and it was just a great cause and very rewarding, and we hope DECA will continue to contribute to this organization in the future. Thanks.
Okay, once again, I'm Addie, and this is Melanie. And we co-created the first ever Prom Expo for Muscular Dystrophy Association. And so muscular dystrophy is really focused on researching over 50 different muscle diseases, as well as providing a summer camp for those living with muscular dystrophy. And many students, when you talk to them about this, if they are living with it, this is the best week of their summer. Like, they look forward to this all year. And they're one of DECA's main partners, which is why we decided them. But the initial idea for the Prom Expo really came when we were at a bridal show, working it actually. And we thought it would be a great idea to bring this concept to high school because you really don't have that experience until you get older. And so we thought there would be lots of benefits to not only our chapter, but our community and to MDA. And so we brought a lot of learning concepts to that, but that's how our idea started.
So we had an initial goal of raising $500 to send a child from our community to MDA summer camp, and we ended up exceeding that goal by raising $656. The summer camp usually costs between $700 and $8 per child. So knowing that we could contribute that much to sending a child there, it was just amazing. Sue Wigger, who is the MDA representative in our area, she told us that kids would say that this week was better than Christmas for them. So that was so cool knowing that we could help with that. But more than just donating money, we also got to spread a message. With the help of local businesses like Tip Top Tux and Men's Warehouse, we got to really reach out to the community and let them know more about MDA and what they do.
This was a first-year event, however, though, so we wanted to make sure to promote it heavily. And so this was really where we got to apply those concepts we learned in marketing from Sitzler and Erickson in class in real life. And so that was a huge help to us. I mean, it was really cool to see that what we learned could actually be used. So this is a picture of us on the KVLY segment that aired in the morning live. That was a really cool opportunity for us to work with business people in the real world. And we also received promotions in the Forum, WDAY, KVLY, KVR Fox, and the radio stations in town, as well as creating a Facebook page.
So this whole experience was very rewarding, but it was a lot more than just personal gain. We got to involve students from other schools who came to the event, parents, local business people, and with the help of those local businesses, like Addie said, Men's Warehouse got us that segment on the KVLY morning show, and that segment alone reached over 200,000 people. So that was really cool knowing that not only did we help send a child to summer camp, but we also created a much more aware community. And for our chapter members, we hope that they took the things that they learned from our Prom Expo and will continue to grow this event so that in the future we can reach out to even more people and hopefully send 2 kids or 3 kids to the MDA summer camp.
They're just a few of DECA's most recent chapter projects, especially this year. But in the past year, we've been a part of the MDA Telethon, where you answer phone calls, the Miracle Minute around the area, the MDA Summer Camp. We've actually had kids go work as counselors there. We did a Pause, Ponder, Post cyberbullying campaign around the area, United Way bell ringings, and one of our bigger campaigns, which is the See It, Hear It, Stop It campaign, led by Morgan Thompson. And so it has been a true honor to be part of DECA, and we've all learned a lot. It's been a huge part of all of our lives. And we are truly thankful that you invited us to here tonight. Did you have any questions for us at all? Any of us, I guess?
Okay, go ahead.
I have to say something, of course. DECA is very near and dear to my heart, and Emma was here last year, and she presented to the board as the international president. North High has done such a fabulous job with DECA, and I believe it's one of the largest chapters in the state, am I
It
right?
is largest, yep.
Okay, and there's also a couple, my son is currently a vice president for the state, and my older son was as well, and he's now president of his fraternity. The leadership skills that he learned from Mr. Erickson and the mentorship that he gained, and the business expertise has really helped him in other parts of his life. And so it's now cool to be a DECA member. That wasn't the case when I was growing up. So good job, guys, and really go home and thank Kelly and Mr. Erickson and Mrs. Erickson, and thank them because they really go above and beyond, and they're great mentors.
Thank you.
Good job.
Does anyone else have any questions? Well, thank you very much. Robin said it all. We really appreciate you guys coming out. This really is the best part of our meetings, is when we get to hear what's going on in the schools, and you guys make us proud. So enjoy the last few weeks of your senior year.
Thank you.
Thank you. And don't leave without this. It hasn't gone all the way around yet. The next part on our agenda is recognition of the audience, but no one has signed up, so we will go on to staff reports. And with us tonight for the FEA, Laura Christensen.
Okay, so I'm Laura. I teach English Language Arts at Davies High School. Okay, I'm not actually David's assistant. He's very sad he doesn't get an assistant. I serve FEA as the secretary currently. Several weeks ago, when David's softball schedule was predictable enough, he asked the executive board members to sign up for days to pick up, and I picked April 8th. And so tonight, I'm filling in for whoever picked tonight to fill in. So Davies High softball team is playing Valley City at Davies, so we can all road trip south after this, go see a game. Just a few things to mention. Teacher Appreciation Week is May 5 through 9. If you can only stomach one day of celebration, that would be the day on May 6th. That's Tuesday. Saturday, April 12th, about a dozen of us members, Fargo educators, took part in the first ever North Dakota United Rep Assembly in Bismarck. Now we're NEA affiliated and AFT. And, okay, we had State Superintendent Kirsten Basler, we had AFT President Randy Weingarten, and NEA current Vice President and certainly the next President, Lily Eskelson Garcia. So that was awesome times 10. We've got the FEA Retirement Social coming up Thursday, April 24th. This also functions as a fundraiser for our FEA scholarship. It's at the Doublewood, and of course, we'd like to invite board members and senior staff, well, all staff, really. Doublewood, 4 to 6. And coming up soon is all I can say right now, pretty soon. Actually, I can be more specific. We'll be doing interviews, FEA will be doing interviews of school board candidates and legislators to inform our membership. And there is one more thing that Dave neglected on his notes. Elementary teachers don't get it, maybe. Tomorrow, April 23rd, we celebrate William Shakespeare's 550th birthday. So, there you go.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for being with us tonight. Enrollment projections, Dr. Gross again.
In front of you is a report that I'd just like to share with you. Like we have done in the past, what I will do is share with you elementary numbers for this evening, and then we will share secondary numbers at a later meeting. So just to orient you to this report, what you'll see in the far right-hand side, there's a yellow column. That is just the current enrollment as of this morning, K through 5. So you had that as a reference point. And then to its right in the green column, this is the number of students that we know will be attending our schools in 2014. When I say no, that is through kindergarten. That's through the kindergarten roundup process. So this is the number of parents who have come in and at this time filled out the paperwork for kindergarten. And in the other grade levels, grades 1 through 5, those are the students that our principals know through conversation with parents or staff members' conversations with parents that will be returning to the district next year. The other pieces of data on this report, though, if you go to the left, is some trend history. And I wanted to share that with you tonight. This is 2 years ago, and this is the school year 2012. What you'll see in the green column is the number of students who we knew were coming 2 years ago at a similar point in time during this April point of the year. And then the blue column is the total number of students who we started with that next school year. So you will see in the gray column that follows is the increase that we had before or between April and the first day of school. 2 years ago, that was about 290 students. Similar data then for 2013. You'll see similar point in time in the green column, the April date, the number of students that we knew either through kindergarten and roundup or through talking with families, the opening day numbers, and then the increase that we would see between April and that August, again about 290 students. On this report, what I wanted to draw your attention to is the trend history that we have. Typically from this point in time to the beginning of the school year, at least the last 2 years, it's been an increase of about 290 students over that, what we know. And if you look at the total of the green columns, you will see from 2012 to 13 to what we know for 14, an increase in the number of students that we look at over time. So if we look at that and we look at that enrollment trend, the anticipation is we would have additional elementary students for next year than we do this year. We'll have similar data or another report for you as we look at secondary numbers at a later date.
Chris? Thank you. Bob, I must be reading this wrong because if I subtract the number of kids we had in the fall of 2013 from the number of kids we currently have, there's a difference of 8 kids. So I'm a little curious, when will we know how many more kids we had in this 2013-14 school year? I mean, can we tell now that we had that similar growth pattern?
What I would look at is the first blue column from August of 2012. You can see about 5,091. Then in August of 2013, an increase of about 160 students. And then if you look from there to our current, from beginning of the year to now, we do have that slight reduction of about 8 students. But as we project for next school year, we know there are 4,984 students, either through kindergarten roundup or through talking with parents. And then if we project that same increase,
I got you.
that's where we would see that.
I see where you're going now. Got it.
John?
Madam President, Dr. Gross, I'm just curious if you have some insight as to where these students are and if there are any surprises with where they're landing relative to our demographic projections and what we expected, especially for South Fargo. And then I'm also curious, secondly, if the move in the transitions that were implemented for Kennedy and the Eagle Center are bearing out as being wise and prudent.
As we look at and we begin the process of doing elementary classrooms and sections for next school year, I do not think we have seen an anomaly or things that we were not anticipating. I think as we look at the Kennedy at Eagles and as we add another grade level there, 3rd grade, that will continue to do what we anticipated it would do, is provide some of the relief at that building. And then it will need to continue that projection for the next few years as we talk about at a future time, what does that mean when the new school is up and running and boundaries.
Go ahead.
I would just add that, you know, we've taken a hard look over the last 2 years at our demographics, and we've done studies, we've been very in tune with the city and what's happening. Today, I took a drive out to Davies and was doing some things out there. Was out on the southern edge of town, and you see the land now being opened up in the Christensen addition that's right over by the interstate and 52nd. You see the land out by Davies to the west now being opened up. The houses that have been built and the apartment buildings now that are being built just north of Davies, and then the development south of Davies, it's coming. It's just a matter of time. And so the best knowledge we have is that we're going to continue to grow at this point, and that's been our prediction. It'll be really interesting to see when that fills in, when people are actually in those homes, the types of families that come and the number of kids that come with that. But that's all part of those projections that were made. But there is just an enormous amount of housing that's being put up. And so we'll see here in August when we do our final numbers, when kids actually show up for school. But if it goes with the trend data, we should be up the numbers that you've seen before. So that's where we're at right now.
Any other questions? Thank you. We look forward to part 2. Any other staff reports? Rachel? Dr. Gross?
Anything else?
Dr. Schatz?
I just want to give you an update. We've got a lot of projects that are starting, things that were all part of the long-range facilities plan. The Ed Clapp Elementary construction progress starting tomorrow, and I think it's supposed to rain now tomorrow. But the pre-construction meetings have all occurred. They've done site prep to get ready for tearing back the turf, if you will, to start digging, and that was supposed to start tomorrow. So if it doesn't rain, you're going to see work starting there tomorrow. If you drive by, you'll see that there's some pre-staging of construction vehicles and those types of things. But everything is online as far as that project with the expectations of where we would be in this point in time. And so we're proceeding with that, and it'll be interesting to see here in the next couple of weeks how much progress they make with the actual prep of the area. As far as the HVAC projects, things are rolling forward very quickly with that also. Jim Free has been to all the meetings at the different schools, has met with all the contractors. In some of the schools, they've already started to break down. A lot of the schools have 2 boiler systems. They've started to break down one of those boiler systems to get the prep work done. We've kept the other boilers operational at this point because the weather still doesn't want to cooperate with the low temperatures at night, and we don't want to take out the other boiler and then all of a sudden have a cold school that you can't heat. And so we're waiting a little bit longer. I asked Jim, and I said, typically, when do we quit using our boilers, in the school year? And he said, anytime between April 15th and May 1st is typically what's happened. So hopefully the weather will work with us on that. So as soon as they can shut down those boiler systems, then they can continue to do those demos and get the prep work done to put in the HVAC systems. A lot of the equipment that will be needed for the projects has been ordered. And again, that's with all the different contractors that we're working with. So the good news is that things are moving forward, and everything's on time as we have anticipated. And we don't see any problems with things continuing to move that way. Again, though, if the weather would cooperate, we could get more of the demo done with the boilers. But other than that, it's all real good. So that's what I know for now, and we'll continue to give you updates as we go through the projects and let you know where we're at with things. So if there's any questions, I'd entertain those now.
Brock?
Nothing at this time.
Consent agenda. Jim?
I move approval of the consent agenda with the HR addendum.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any opposed, same sign? Thank you. Believe it or not, no business items on today's agenda. So we will move to board reports and NSBA sharing. And Linda, you're up.
It was my first national convention, which was great. Schedule-wise, it just didn't work in previous years. Went to several sessions, went to a couple that had to do with arts in the curriculum, whether it's adding it to STEM or the value of arts or whatever. And to be honest, I just never saw anything that outshone what we're doing or we're already doing. Brought back some materials that I'll just give to Anne Marie. Went to some things about board culture and dealing with different board types of personal styles, knowing that we're going to have a lot of new members. But probably the most interesting one that I went to, and I can't remember which state this is, but they do something called a Leadership Academy. And in Fargo, the police department and the fire department, and I think the Cass County department, they do a leadership academy. So members of the community, the way it's done here, can volunteer, and one evening a week for 12 or 20 weeks or however not, people get together and learn the inner workings of. They do that with their school district. And it's called a Leadership Academy, and they get citizens from the community to be part of this kind of leadership training group. But they see this group as community ambassadors, roles and responsibilities of various folks, and they see it as part of succession planning, and from there they hope to generate future candidates, and they choose who's going to be in it by nomination and invitation letter. It's kind of exclusive. Struck me odd. I don't know if that would fly in our community, but they really and immerse them in all kinds of things that the school district is doing. Kind of thing that we like to show people on an individual basis. Look at our ELL program or whatever. And the culinary arts students prepared the final dinner and banquet. It seemed like an interesting idea that maybe we could tailor it to our district, but people get to understand, the ins and outs and whatnot.
Sounds like maybe a communication topic, communication. You, John. It looks like you have all sorts of stuff going on over there. Shall I go around and ask committee assignments, committee reports, and then we'll come back to you in a moment when you're all set up with your toys? Okay, committee and liaison reports. Linda, we'll go back to you and go around. Okay, Paul?
Meetings with the Fargo Public Schools Foundation. There's a lot going on in foundation land, and we have a very active and energetic foundation. Tomorrow, Thursday morning, we have the alumni and friends breakfast meeting at the Ramada. And if you do not yet have a ticket for that and would like to have a ticket, I have some tickets available. It's a great opportunity for people who are friends of the Fargo Public School District or alums to get together and support the activities. Bill Lucas, a former teacher in the Fargo School District, will be leading that group in a little activity. Also, the Alumni Association has been very active, kind of a division of the Alumni Foundation is the Dollars for Scholars group, and they also have been very active, but frankly need to raise some big money so that they can help make a difference to graduating Fargo Public Schools seniors as well as other school districts in the area that they support. And that's what's happening.
Thank you. Chris?
Didn't visit any of my schools this week since our last meeting, but I have visited a couple of times with the folks at the United Way just to talk about their big initiative, which is early childhood education right now. And at GAC, the two outreach directors just sat in to kind of hear what our legislative priorities were. But they are putting everything they have into that because they know that you get great return on your investment when you you invest early in kids. And so I'm pleased that we're taking a look at that on GAC.
Rusty?
Well, you had skipped right over me, Dinah.
I haven't skipped you, Rick, but if you wish
Oh,
to
okay.
go, if you wish to go now, you can. Go ahead.
No, I just before I lose you again, I just got a quick notice. Our next planning meeting will be on May 2nd at noon. That's about all I have.
Okay.
That primary topic being budget.
Thank you. Jim?
Just a couple things to report. SEEK had a governing board meeting. SEEK had a governing board meeting since we last met and entered into a consulting contract to take a look at the overall payroll functions and benefit functions. And just as a point of reference, the firm that was selected was Eide Bailey, and the cost is about $25,000. So as we think about hiring consultants, that's just one more list of what they seem to be charging in the marketplace today. We also voted as a board to have the SEEC go through the Advanced Ed accreditation process. This is apparently something that other education cooperatives or education agencies do. Obviously, we as a school district do it as well. The process is slightly different for an education agency, but that will be an ongoing project over the next coming months involving both the staff and board of the SEEC, but also our administrator group as well, as we try to chart the future strategic direction for the organization. As was mentioned by Chris, GAC met. We've been putting together a potential list of legislative initiatives for the board's consideration. We'll, at the next governance meeting, figure out when that's going to be plugged in to bring before the full board to have you all weigh in on which ones we should really make our top priorities and begin to flush out what the strategies for success would be in those. We are also of the mindset, for those of you that probably remember this, usually in legislative years, right after the elections, we hold kind of a briefing session with Fargo legislators to kind of let them know our wishes for the coming legislative session. Then during the session, we actually jointly host a breakfast meeting out in Bismarck with the West Fargo board and invite, obviously, West Fargo, Fargo, and other key legislators, usually pretty close to the midpoint of the legislative session, in hopes of maybe getting some last-minute help on things that we feel are critical. The GAC committee's sense of things, and unless we get redirected by the board tonight, we're going to reach out to West Fargo and see if they would like to jointly host the pre-legislative session one with us, as well as the one we usually do during the legislative session, with the thought that that would encompass not only Fargo but West Fargo legislators, and we really feel from a education agenda perspective out in Bismarck, there aren't too many differences between what we are going to be advocating for and what we suspect they'll be advocating for as well. So I have not reached out to West Fargo yet to see if they're interested in doing that. I first wanted to bring it back to the board for some feedback, if that makes sense to the rest of you that aren't on GAC. And since I see nobody objecting, that's probably what we'll proceed to try and work on. That's it.
Thank you. Back to you, John.
The only report I have is HIC will be meeting on Thursday, and that will be their first encounter with, as I understand from Brock, their first engagement with the consultant that will be evaluating benefits as were decided by the board the last meeting, and they'll be getting a sense from Blue Cross Blue Shield what they anticipate the rates will be. So that'll be some significant news, hopefully good news coming our way.
Paul?
I have a question that maybe Dr. Schatz or Dr. Bob would be familiar with. Are we, I know the answer, I think, to this one, but we're not doing any kind of an official retirement event for staff members, teachers, and other things like, other people like that this year that like we have done in previous years?
Each individual building has one, and they're all on my president's report.
Right.
But you're talking about a big
We
district-wide.
used to do a district-wide one. We're not doing that anymore, right?
From what I understand, the district used to do that. They quit doing that a few years ago. I'm not sure how long ago, but because a lot of the buildings were doing it. They're doing it in their own individual buildings. We had a conversation in cabinet about, should we look at that again? Should we do something like that? And so we've had those discussions. We haven't really landed on any one particular spot at this point. As you saw this year with the Teacher of the Year, we added the Administrator of the Year and Staff Person of the Year, sports staff. So we expanded that program this year. So we continue to talk about ways that we could recognize staff and do things from a district perspective. But at this time, there's really no plan, because we went out and asked the buildings, you know, if we did that, what do you think? And we got kind of a 50-50 response, you know.
Who did you ask at the building?
We asked the building level principals in their buildings what they'd like to do, because typically it's organized through the office, the principals, and usually their team within the building. So that's where we're at right now. No plans to do it right now.
Okay.
But.
Well, for what it's worth, anyway, and maybe it isn't really appropriate necessarily for the board, although I guess it could be, but I never really liked it when they ended that program. I thought it was a good program to have, and we just don't have very many opportunities where we specifically acknowledge people who've worked for the district for, in some cases, 40 years, and to just to go to the principals and ask them, what do you think of it? I think, you know, we need to get some feedback from the other people there who are maybe not at that level. Not that it would necessarily be anything different, but I think we should find ways as a district where we can recognize the people who are leading the charge out there, for that matter, whatever their position is. And when they work for the district for 20 or 30 or 40 years, we need to find some way other than a little get-together in the library with some cake and things like that, because I think it kind of gets diminished each year as we do it. And then the other thing is, and in a way it isn't an official district retirement event, but I was looking at my calendar to see what's going on the 24th in the afternoon. Is anybody planning to attend that FEA? Because that FEA meeting, it might be nice to reach out and continue to build more bridges in that area if they're having their official retirement program. I've been to it in previous years, and I guess I would just say if anybody can make it there, that'd be a great thing. And the food is good. Candied bacon for everyone. No, probably
Well,
not.
Dr. Brass. Thank you. John, would you like to give us a demonstration of your toys now?
I would, Madam President. I felt compelled to take liberties and to share with you some more materials than ordinarily I would for your study as board members, and particularly to our administrative staff and cabinet. I went to two entirely provocative sessions that so affected my thinking about things we address as board members and as a public school system, and I think they're both just tips of the iceberg. But the initial first category I'm going to visit about is the makers movement, or the do-it-yourself movement, and the how that's trickling into education and the potential of it and the opportunity. The second issue I would like to visit with is about policies and practices in schools that contribute to losing students, and some of the things we can kind of put on our radar about things like they call it the school to prison pipeline. So going to the initial movement, I want to preface my overall views with this. There was no sense that in anything I saw at the National Convention this year that did anything much other than while they were acknowledging Common Core, it permeated almost into every session I went to, the questions and concerns about Common Core. And of course, everybody's new to Common Core and the implications of it, but that was couched kind of in the language of cookie-cutter approaches to education. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing for kids, and that's part of our problem and our challenge. So they weren't condemning Common Core necessarily at all, but they're challenging us to break through the molds and the limitations and the issues and the challenges with kids who learn differently and with new technologies. So when I got our book for the program, I scoured through the program looking for one thing, 3D printing. And I found one presenter dealing with 3D printing. His name is Gary Stager. And I think he should be somebody we put on our list for professional development here in Fargo. It's the most provocative, inspiring presentation and set of information I have seen in my 5 years at any conference relative to education. And he had lots and lots of anecdotes and challenges, but he couched everything from the very beginning with this overall theme, and you all know this, that young kids, young people have a remarkable capacity for intensity. And if we have kids in our reach that aren't showing that intensity, we have a challenge to inspire them and to move them and to get them engaged. And he presented the notion of the maker movement, the do-it-yourself movement, as the breakthroughs that are going to come our way faster than any of us can anticipate. And things like with 3D printing, someday if somebody's going to send one of you a bicycle as a Christmas gift, they'll send you an email file. They'll email you a file and you'll print your bicycle. This is the technology that's right around the corner. And so these young kids, and it's not a thing where it's the gifted only children or the wealthy only children. It's all kids will get engaged and it'll heighten their capacity for intensity if we put something in their hands. And today when I was getting ready for this, I happened to work with some real geeks. And my business partner, Raul Gomez, comes in here, and he says, "What are you doing with a makey book?" I go, "How do you know about this?" And he went in and he dug through his drawer and pulled out a makey. And you should have seen the fire in his eyes when he found out I'm going to talk about things like makey and 3D printing to the school district and challenge us to look at how we can bring these do-it-yourself maker movement concepts into the school system in our educational delivery. But so, for example, I wasn't going to bring a laptop because you wouldn't have been able to see, but you have this little thing here, and then they also use things like raspberries and these little Raspberry Pi. And what I also learned is that iPads are not, I thought iPads were everything 2 years ago. Now I wouldn't encourage our district to buy them, knowing that this movement is coming and that they're not prepared for this do-it-yourself makers movement. But so here's something you can put in the hands of anybody, an adult and a kid, and you take it and you conduct it. We took some lead pencils and drew the lead out, and you can makeshift this. You can turn this into your keyboard. You can do letters, you can do scrolls, you can play Pac-Man, you can literally do anything with this makey. Raul suggested that I take and hook this up to my laptop and to a plant and show you that I can turn my plant, house plant, into my keyboard. And things like this. This is the kind of stuff that you don't have to as much when you're putting things like this in the hands of children and adults. You know, it's not so much formulaic teaching like learn this formula or learn this math formula. It's you put this in there and they learn by doing and by making and by experiencing it. And the kids that were often timing out in their heads will rise to a level sometimes, the kids that we might not think we had any hope in, they say, will just start shining with their capacity to get excited and show an intensity with something like this. So this is something that we use just to play Pac-Man. I was showing how I can take this, hook it up to my laptop, and start touching these things and playing Pac-Man by touching the points on the paper that were simply lead that were connectors. That's one example of this movement that's coming our way. So I brought you the handout from Gary Stager. I'd like to pass this book on to our superintendent, and if you folks would take the moment, if you're able to, with Dr. Gross and Dr. Schatz, take a look at this. I unequivocally have not seen anything as exciting in my dozens and dozens of sessions I've gone to in 5 or 6 years as this. And the notion that it's for all kids and it'll roll kids into a level and what they will gain out of it is just, it just excited me about what we can do in education. And as board members, we need to let our administration and staff know that, at least I as one board member I say go to it. Explore, experiment, see, and set new horizons, and then challenge us to figure out how to prioritize the budgets to accommodate these new technologies. Because it's around the corner, and it's going to happen before we even know it. And that topic is about engaging kids that are falling through the cracks, as well as just the gifted kids. It's about getting kids that were kind of like they're timing out, and that we don't know, and their families don't know if they're as excited as they should be about education. And what I gathered from this is the kids who are getting exposed to this makers movement, this do-it-yourself movement, are coming home, and they're chomping at the bit to get back to school again. They just can't wait. And parents and families and communities are seeing a level of enthusiasm that they're not accustomed to seeing, and this is a brand-new movement. But technology's like a tsunami, unleashing in every which direction. That's a real gift coming to all of us and to the kids. The other one that I saw that challenged my brain, the school to prison pipeline. Just was wondering, well, what's this all about? Big cities and their problems or not? And I didn't know what the relative how it relates to a board. But we all pay attention to our kids that drop out, and we all know the desire to lower the dropout rates and so on. But there's some significant insight about some of these kids and why they drop out. Things I wouldn't have thought of, but just for example, one suspension once, one kid getting one suspension once doubles the likelihood of them dropping out. Just one suspension. And then what you do with kids when they're expelled or dealing with suspensions, what do you do with their 2 days or their 3 days or their time off? What are you channeling their way to give them alternative education, or are you just setting them off and they're in a room like this? Or are we really rallying all of our forces to make sure we re-engage that kid, knowing that they're more likely to drop out than ever before because of that? It's just that simple circumstance. There are some states, I wouldn't have thought about it, I don't know North Dakota's laws. There are some states that they're required by law to suspend a kid that has certain levels of truancies. State law will set these kids up to drop out. And sometimes they're extraordinary kids with unusual life circumstances. And there's always a sense of context when you have kids in trouble or having circumstances. What is the context of their life? What is the context of the problem they had? Are we punitive with our approach to these kids and their troubles, or are we restorative? Do we take that as a learning moment, or do we take it as a punishing moment? These are the types of challenges that were touched on in this type of things. An immense challenge to the concept of zero tolerance. The more rigid zero tolerance is as a concept, the more likely you have suspensions and expulsions and dropouts. I wouldn't have connected those dots quite that way. All the different levels of accountabilities and all these different things, and Dr. Schatz and Dr. Gross, I know we're preaching to the choir. You know this better than we do. But I, as one board member, now know, gosh, what you do to fight for kids and keeping them in the schools, it's way more than just black and white rules that you can't ever deviate from those rules. And so when you have to show heart and you try to see the context that they're in. The word discipline, the roots of the word discipline are to teach. Discipline doesn't mean you spank them emotionally or publicly or however. It means you turn it into a teaching moment. So I've shared quite a bit of information, these are from my notes, you know, about this idea of limiting the number of kids that end up in prison because of circumstances that happened while they're in school. And I think that the one thing that came through to us as challenging board members there was to don't be distant from your code of conduct that you present for students. Have it be something everybody at the board table knows, and know the tone of it, and know if it's, and participate in deciding if it's punitive or if it's restorative, and have them engaged with evolving that discussion. So it's not just something we know you all have, but we don't know quite what it is, but it must be good. You know, and so that's the one thing I hadn't thought about, is that the board, as a policy or practice of monitoring, roll up their sleeves and study the code of conduct that we present to the student body, and know it like the back of our hands, and have a discussion and a dialogue about that. So you'll see information about that there in some websites to refer to. I think one of them was the same civil rights one that you had seen a website linking to, where you can go and find out reports about your districts. They say it's okay to have data, but do you use the data well? Is the data reported? Are these incidents reported in a way where it really translates back to the policy levels to know the value of these things? So that's a lot more than if you take the time and just read through that. It really challenged me as coming back to our board, thinking about these kids that fall through the cracks, and if in any way, without knowing it or not, we participate in losing them with our policies and our practices and our codes and so on. It was a good session in that regard, and I think there's hope. I think the overall message with all of these things, and I thought this whole session this year had a higher tone of hope than we've seen, than I've noticed in the last several years. I think the last several years it was very, very constructively critical of education, and there's a lot of beating up of public education. And I think there's a lot of evolving thought about how do we rise above all of this, despite the clamor in the public that they think that public education is an abysmal failure sometimes. And they're just looking for evidence that it's not always a success they want it to be. These are a couple examples of some things we in Fargo could just kind of look at and do, and get on the do-it-yourself movement, the makers movement. You know, like for example, there's 3 makers movement fairs in the country, and they have kids that'll make little things like a pet zoo, where they design them, program them, make them, and print them out of their 3D printer. And it's like these kids are little kids and toddlers are out in the room playing with these things they created. And this is where I'm told MIT goes to recruit students. They're seeing these kids doing these things, and we want you to come to our school because they're seeing these kids do things that, in practice, that is the future. And this movement isn't just going to be 3 of these makers fairs across the country. It's going to be everywhere. And we have a chance, I think, to become a leader in that up here in the hinterland, and sooner than later. And I'm just inspired by that. So I'm happy to share this stuff. And if you have any thoughts, Dr. Gary Steger's book is there. His business card is in there. I don't think I could ever think of a speaker I'd like to see more to come to us in Fargo and share his thoughts with us as a district that would provoke our whole look at a lot of what we do going forward. So thank you, Madam President and members of the board.
Thank you, John. Very interesting. Pardon me. Does anybody have any questions for John after? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for such a detailed presentation. President's report is mostly a list of dates, one way or another. As Paul was asking about, I put down all of the retirement events that I'm aware of that have been posted so far. It's quite a lengthy list. And the graduation assignments, again, at the bottom, there's a couple of changes that I've highlighted, but not all since the last time. I just wanted to share one thing with you. I mentioned last time that I attended the Building Bridges Conference, and it was the first day. Our last board meeting was the first day of 2. And on the second day, I wanted to share with you a story which reminds me, not something that I think I need to be reminded of, but what an outstanding superintendent we have. This was a conference about refugees and new Americans and what we as a community can or should be doing. And there was, on the second day, a breakout session. The whole second day morning was interactions of all the folks that were there, sharing their experiences and discussing various things. And at the end of the morning, people were supposed to get up and share, if they wished, something that they'd learned from the morning or the last day and a half, what we as individuals can do to, as one person, related to this broader topic. Now, I will not be able to repeat what he said, so I'm going to ask him to say it. But he was the last speaker who got up. It was the perfect ending to this morning, and he got up and spoke. And I want him to share with you what he said because I feel it shows why we have him as our superintendent and the direction that we're taking as a district regarding this particular population of our students. So please, put you on the spot, if you can remember exactly what you said.
I'll have to paraphrase for you. Well, I decided to attend the Building Bridges Conference because I just felt a need to become better informed about our community and the many different varieties of cultures and people that now live here in Fargo, and in particular the students that we serve here in our district. We have over 750 students that are classified as what we call ELL students, English Language Learners. They come from a variety of different backgrounds. Many of the students are refugees and come from war-torn countries, places where they have witnessed things that none of us will ever witness in our lifetime. And they come to us as students. And so because of recent events and things that we've experienced in our district, I just felt a need to better connect. And after being there for 2 days, it was abundantly obvious to me that we need to get more involved. And so basically I got up and just stated that because of some things that have occurred and things that I've been involved with, I've changed in my view of how I think we need to be working with our students and as a community in Fargo, how we need to view the diversity that we have here now, and that leaders in our community need to get involved. What I saw at the conference was people who are dedicated to what they're doing, but it's the closed circle. It's those people who are working with all the challenges that we have, and we need to have more people involved, in particular leaders within our city, within our metro and community area. So I pledge that I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to start trying to make a difference in what we're doing. I've had meetings with several different groups since that time. Today I had a meeting with LSS, and our plan is to come up with what I'm going to call a roadmap to cultural competencies. And what will it take for us to broaden our view and better understand what it is that is the challenge before us, to become a community of where everyone is part of our community and everyone is accepted. So, in a nutshell, that was kind of what I had mentioned, and appreciated the work that these people do because it's challenging, it's not easy. And more than anything, in working with our students and working with our families that come to us, it's a real challenge for them. I can't imagine being placed in the situations that many of them have come from, and then coming to a country where, and to a place where they have absolutely no idea of what they're coming to, and such cultural differences, and trying to adapt and make it work for them. So we as a school district, when our students and parents come to us, need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make that transition as seamless as possible and to do the best we can in providing those services. And it's on many different fronts. And it's going to take a lot of different things to make it better than it is now. So this is just the beginning conversation, and I'm hoping it goes somewhere. So we're committed.
And I'll let you, and I also just want to add so that everybody also understands that there was a large showing of FPS staff. I think I mentioned that last time, both those who work directly with ELL students and those who don't. But I learned a lot also. And I know it's difficult for board members, for any of us to take 2 days, even one full day out of our schedules to attend a conference like that. But next year, I would encourage some of you to take the opportunity to go, even if it's only just one day, because I think this is an issue that will continue to be in the forefront of the Fargo Public Schools. And the more we know as board members, when decisions come to our table to have discussions, that we have to influence, I think the better off we will be and the better off our students will be. So, sorry, that's my message on that one. And Linda?
I was just thinking, you know, as this unfolds, this roadmap to cultural competence, which is a fantastic idea, at the end of it, or at some point, it would be great if you and your team were to go to school boards and propose it at national school boards. I don't see anything like that being offered.
Well, right now it's in a very early stages of discussions. What I'm trying to do is really learn, about what are the major challenges that are facing us as a school district, which there are many, and they're very complicated. That's the one thing about this topic is it's a very complicated topic because there are so many moving parts to it. So we're in that discovery phase, if you will, and as we start to shape this, it's almost like strategic planning is identify what the issues are, what the concerns, challenges are, what are the positive things that we have going on, and then place together a plan to address that on many different levels. We identified, 15 different challenges. My idea is to take and separate that into 3 different levels, things that can be addressed rather easily with maybe a few just minor adjustments and make a difference. Then you have that middle group of things that maybe take a little bit more time to get figured out. And you have those really long-term hard challenges and how can you start to address that issue. Not only just with the simple things we can do as a district, but as a city and legislatively as a state and all those things. So we'll put together some kind of picture of that. I'll put together a group of community people that can come to the table and be part of that discussion. And so hopefully by the beginning of next school year, we can kind of have this roadmap to start to work with and know then who, what, and where kind of thing. So again, it's all a derivative of just an enlightenment of just saying, we need to do more. We got to do something different than what we've been doing. And we can't just be standing by and watching things happen, as they say. We need to make things happen, and that's what we're going to do. So,
Thank you. Any other reports? Nothing from you, John? No birthdays coming up? Okay, our next meeting is May the... Yes?
May I just announce that John had a birthday?
Oh!
Which we observed.
Yeah, I said that last time, I think, yeah. Yeah, you may have missed it last time when I said it. Okay, next board meeting is May 13th. Debriefing, anyone? Yes?
Good news and bad news. I was also at Building Bridges, and I was just a few feet away from Jeff. And I'm not a crier, but I cried. It was so impressive and overwhelming to see our school leader being responsive to the student population that we have. I was just really overwhelmed and impressed. So thank you, Jeff, for that. And the other thing is, I'm kind of a rule follower, and I just have I think it's more honest if people can't be at our meeting, just don't come. If you're going to come for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the beginning and leave and not come back, maybe that 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning is so critical and you just don't want to miss it. But I'm beginning to get a sense that there are patterns happening where people are kind of putting forth something that feels dishonest to me, which is just show up for the beginning. Maybe your name gets on the agenda that you were here and then you leave and come back or leave and don't come back. I just think that if you're not going to be here for the meeting, for the majority of the meeting, except for 5 or 10 minutes, it's probably more professional and ethical in my view if you just don't come. And that's all I have.
Any other comments? Linda?
Well, as long as that's put out there, I guess I'd be curious to see the feelings of the board. Many times during, well, no more than 5, I have a standing orchestra committee meeting for my job with the conductor, and I have to be there. So it doesn't start till later, so I leave and come back. Is that one of our policies, or is it the wishes of the board that I mean, if you put out there that that's preferable, I'm wondering, is that preferable? Should I just not come? Or what is the feeling of the rest of the board, or is it a policy?
Let me respond, and then I'll let you have. As the president, first of all, I'm always notified if someone is coming and going for any reason, always aware of that. I think it's important to have people here when they can be here to contribute to the meeting. And I, for one, would prefer to have people here for whatever portion of the meeting they can be. We all have things a life outside of this boardroom, and I think that, to my record, people are not taking advantage of this by coming and going on a regular basis. I knew Robin had to leave early tonight. I don't remember the last time she had to leave. That's my personal opinion, I guess. Paul, did you have?
I'm sure we all have personal opinions about personal matters, and I think when you look around the board, and having been on the board for a long time and having been a teacher and had some other experiences with the district, and I look at the people who are on the board now, and I don't mean this as a slam to people who were here 15 years ago, but I remember when I originally started looking at being on the board, and we have an amazing group of people who, many of whom are involved heavily in the community and with their normal place of employment, as well as their families. And they each, I'm not trying to be corny here, but we each bring a certain something to the board meetings. And I personally certainly would wish everyone could be here for a full meeting, but I look at it as making an extra effort, even if they're only here for part of the time, because they're demonstrating that they want to be a part of the program, even if they know they can't be here for the full meeting. And there are an awful lot of ways to demonstrate that you're a part of a working, functioning school board, and one of them is to attend board meetings, but it's only one part of what goes on. So, we all like to tease each other about various things, and but I would say that I'm happy to have Robin here tonight. It just happens to be Robin's turn to only be here for part of the time, but even the get together before the actual formal meeting begins is an important part of what we do. So I guess I'm kind of emphasizing what Linda says, and I think we each bring something to the board, and when you have commitments outside, sometimes you have to bow to those.
So just to clarify, Paul, what you're saying is if it's better if you come to the dinner before the board meeting because that's part of the board meeting?
Did I say that?
That's what it sounded
I
like
don't think he said instead of.
Did I say that, Chris?
I thought you said.
Well, I think you need to listen a little bit more closely, because I think
Maybe
Jim
you
heard
could
exactly what I
clarify.
said.
Tell
And
me
that
what you
was-
said.
well, what I said-
Okay.
Well, that's what debriefing is for, Dinah.
I know, but we're still in a board meeting and one person speaking at a time.
What I said was that I think all of the activities of board members are important, whether it's something that happens before a board meeting or during a board meeting or whenever. And I think we each bring different facets to a board meeting. And if someone can't be here for the full meeting, I'm happy they're here for whatever part they can be.
Did I miss a hand on this side? No. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I think everybody probably makes sacrifices to be here. I know I do. And I just feel that when there are important things to be discussed, the dinner doesn't count. I think for all of us, I mean, we have a ridiculously large board. 9 members is, in my personal view, too many. If we had 7, maybe people would make more of an effort to be here. I just feel like it's the privilege of being on the board is it's enormous. And if we can't be here and we have conflicting issues, then I think maybe people need to think very hard about whether they should serve or not. That's it. I'm not going to say anything
Okay,
else
I
about it.
think the point is made. Since I haven't heard any other, Jim? Right.
Microphone.
First of all, I want to encourage anybody to come for any and all parts of the meeting, whether you're one of the elected board members or a member of the public. If there's something that I've had a hard time with, it isn't that sometimes people have to miss part of the meeting. I am more uncomfortable with the phone that's in the middle and people calling in. Obviously, Rick had connection problems, which were kind of, a little bit disruptive with beeping. And I'll be real honest, that when we first decided we'd allow people to call in for board meetings, I was actually opposed to the concept. But the more I thought about it, I recognized the fact that we're living in a technology era to begin with. We're a very mobile society, not just in terms of our residence address, but in terms of our livelihoods as well. And I think we've adapted pretty well to it. So I'd encourage all of us just to continue to do the best job we can. We don't all have 100% on our report card for homework. We don't all have 100% on our attendance record. But we can always strive to do the best job we can, and I think pretty much everybody does, from my perspective.
Thank you. I agree with Jim, and I think, does anyone have any other topics for debriefing? Well, in that case, meeting adjourned.